All right. Fine. There we go. And the ark lands on Mount Ararat, number 1. And so, yeah, it's going to be a long night. Genesis 8, 1 through 9, and Pastor, if you would, start reading for us, and we'll just take turns until we're done.
And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark, and God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged.
The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained.
And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days the waters were abated.
And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat.
And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. And the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen.
And it came to pass at the end of the 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made.
And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth.
Also he sent forth a dove from him, to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground.
But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. And then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her into him unto the ark.
And he stayed yet other and he stayed yet other 7 days, and again sent forth the dove out of the ark.
Okay, now, as I was going through this, something occurred to me, and it occurred to me because Pastor said something this afternoon, and I went, whoops, we've been neglecting something. And then that something is that we have forgotten to talk about the context of the book of Genesis. So real quick, Genesis was written as part of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and it was written to the Jews. And the reason it was written to the Jews, this is their history and it's also their law when you get into the next books of Exodus through Numbers. And so, and Deuteronomy, excuse me. And so it's written to the Jews. Now, we've discussed context in sermons here at Lighthouse, and the context is important. Without the context, it leaves everything open to private interpretation. So the context in Genesis, it's for the Jews, it's their history. It's written to them because it is their history. It's written for anyone that reads the Bible so that they know about the Jewish history. And so that's the context. And without that context, like I said, you can get it all twisted around and you get all kinds of weird things like we saw in chapter 1 and 2 with the creation, how twisted that's become, because when you look at it and the animals coming up out of the sea, especially the birds, all of a sudden you've got the makings of evolution. It's just some kind of the same similar pattern where something came up out of the water and turned into something else, and then it became something else, and it's all just a bunch of garbage. And people get mad when you say evolution is garbage. Well, it's not science. As if it was science, it would hold true all the way through, and it doesn't, because it's junk and a word. And I get tired of people going, doing things like with whatever subject it is and saying, well, science says. If it's real science, good. But most of it's not. Most of it's just junk science. And so I don't have time. We don't have time to argue with people like that. Just say, look, this is what the Bible says. If the Bible says it, that settles it. Done. If you want to take it up with somebody, take it up with God. He's the one that wrote it, and he's the one that gets to be in charge of it. And he is in charge of it. So that was one of the things that came to mind as I was going back through this last couple of days. The other thing that was interesting in that first verse, and God remembered Noah. Did God ever forget Noah? Of course not. How could he forget? He's God. He can't forget anything, except he can forget. He says so. He says, I not only forgive sins, but I forget sins as far as east is from the west. So when God says he can forget something, he can forget it forever. We don't have that ability. We don't even have the ability sometimes to forget except for when we forget to bring our camera, or you forget your wallet on vacation or something like that. But it's not a purposeful forgetting that you just wipe it out of your memory. God wipes it out of his memory. He says, I'm not only going to forget it, it's gone. So when we're saved, our sins are completely not only forgiven, but they're completely forgotten forever. Now, that's amazing. So God didn't forget Noah. But why is the word remembered in there? And the only thing I can come up with is this. Man has a finite understanding. We have a finite brain that doesn't work only for just a period. And God's brain is beyond our imagination and our comprehension. So he had to put something in there that said, okay, look, I remembered. He never forgot. Before he even created the world, he knew that Noah was going to be in that ark with his family, and he knew what day it was going to rain, and he knew when it was going to be over with, and he knew where the ark was going to land, because he's the all-knowing God. So how in the world could he not remember? But we can't remember. So we have to have a word that said, God remembered. And so that is it. God remembers Noah. But in actuality, he was right there with Noah because he's everywhere.
Actually, what he did, he turned his attention back to Noah. I preached on this part last week.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And so it's called what do they call that? There's a term used for why that word remember, and there was another one in there. I have another Bible with me, I'll be able to tell you that it's a term used, it's words used that we understand, even though God doesn't forget. In that sense, he wasn't forgetting him, but that's some kind of a term we could use to understand it.
Yeah.
Right. So he was actually turning his attention back to Noah, because in the previous chapter during the flood, it was all about the flood.
Right.
But yet he knew Noah what he was going through.
That's a great way to explain it. Thank you.
I'll give you my notes to that, by the way, if you want to see them, because I covered 8 and 9.
Yeah,
That's why I help you as you do this too, what study I've done.
I appreciate that. So that was the thing that I was looking at. I thought, wow, how incredible it is. And then the word Ararat, which is the curse reversed. That's what it means in the Hebrew. It means the curse reversed. So, but did the curse ever get really reversed? No. But the flood had served its purpose. It had killed off what needed to be killed off, and it ceased, and now the ark has to come to rest somewhere. So it came to rest on Mount Ararat. So the curse, if it would have been reversed, there wouldn't be any more sin. Because the curse was the judgment of sin. And we still have judgment of sin coming. So it really didn't reverse. It just served its purpose. And the flood stopped. The rain stopped. The waters dried up. And so in that sense, it was reversed. But it would be great if sin didn't exist. It would have been really neat to have the whole curse lifted. That man wouldn't have been under that anymore, but we're still under the curse because man has the sin nature and we do sin. And people that say they never sin, well, they lie. And so once they lie, they sin. Just very simple like that. So now let's do the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And that keeps the context then in line. So, who remembered Noah and all the living things that were with him in the ark? Yeah, got it. And who caused the wind to pass over the earth, causing the waters to decrease? And number 3, who stopped the windows of heaven, the fountains of the deep, and the rain from heaven to be restrained?
God.
Yeah, and God. You know, it's amazing. Another friend of mine was doing something on Psalms 136, and at one point in time I have done that, and it's missing from my computer. But what's interesting is it's a replay of all things that God has done, and His mercy endureth forever. And it starts with the coming out of Egypt. And God said, and who killed all those kings? Well, when you get right down to it, when you start reading through that, a lot of people go, oh yeah, Joshua or David killed Goliath. God said, no, I killed Goliath. I killed the king of Bashan. I killed the king of wherever it was. And on and on. I caused the Red Sea to part. I caused the flood. I caused the ark to be built. And so when you look at the history, every part of the history of Israel, God says, I did it. And the characters are not mentioned in Psalms 136, except for the people that got killed off. And then it doesn't mention, I can't remember if it mentions Moses or not, but it seems like it wasn't mentioned in there. But all the characters that are mentioned are the ones that God did away with. And King of Bashan and the other kings. And I thought that sounds really interesting because it is a replay of the history of Israel. And that's a no charge for that one. Okay, so then what? And what were the 2 birds Noah let loose after Noah opened the window of the ark?
Raven and dove.
Yeah, raven and the dove. And then what did Noah do when the dove returned?
He pulled her in to him.
Yeah, he pulled them in. And then, what did the raven do? Not that we really care what the raven did, but it's interesting what the raven did.
He went to and fro till the waters were dried up.
Yeah, he just flew around. And it's amazing, I forget that I used to know that, how long a raven can fly without having to land. It is a long time. And it's fun to watch them at the Grand Canyon. When we were there, I made friends with one of them, Pete. And Pete and I had a nice long discussion. But he took off from there and just flew everywhere. And just glided all across that canyon, far as you could see him go. And he was just gliding the whole time. And it actually wasn't at Yellowstone, it was at Bryce Canyon. Brain shortage. But yeah, it was at the Bryce Canyon. And they've got a lot of ravens there and the peregrine falcons. And so it was fun to watch them because they were just cruising around and they stay up in there. They can stay up for a long, long, long time. Okay, so the when. And when did God cause the ark to come to rest on the mountains of Ararat?
October 17th.
Get out.
That's good. Hot.
Well, that's what it says. According to the Jewish calendar, that had been like they said
Oh,
October.
okay, yeah, Jewish
It says
calendar.
the 7th month on the 17th day of the month, so.
Yeah,
Whatever month that was, it was the 17th day of it.
yeah.
I just feel smart.
There's gotta be one in every
Yeah, I
grade.
know it, you can't take.
That's okay. Hey, you know, the idea here is that we learn something, and so, yeah. So when did the tops of the mountains become visible? And that's in verse 5.
10th month on the first day of the month.
All right, and then, why did the dove return to the ark?
Wait a minute, you're going too fast.
Oh, I'm going too fast, I'm sorry.
Let's go back to 4. You know, 17th day,
Okay, so that would be,
that's a good day.
that's, yeah. And then when the tops of the mountains became visible was on the first day of the 10th month.
Okay.
And then why did the dove return to the ark?
No resting place.
Yeah, no rest for his feet. And that's interesting too, because, you know, I wish I remembered some of those things that I learned about birds when I was in the pet business, but it's amazing how long a bird can rest in one spot, especially if it's a heavy storm or whatever. What's really amazing is their feet. Their feet have an incredible amount of blood vessels. And when they grip something, that generates heat. So the heartbeat of the bird picks up, and the feet will not freeze because of all those blood vessels down there. And you look at these birds in the wintertime and you go, how in the world can they stand all that cold? Well, it's right there. God made them so that they could have that blood going through there and their feet stay warm. So it's amazing that, and if they can't find a place to rest, they'll fly until they can find a place to put their feet down. If there's just water, they'll fly and fly and fly. Sometimes they die before they can find a spot. But God's watching over that dove. So, under how, there's just one under how. How did God cause the waters to decrease from off the face of the earth? And that's found in verse 1.
Made a wind to pass over.
Yeah, the wind. And saw something today, and I didn't write down where it was at. And I was gonna say Scotland, and I don't think that's right, but it was a waterfall that was reversing. It was actually going back to where it would fall from. And it was due to the high winds. They had 80 and 90 mile an hour winds, and it was shoving the water back to where the waterfall started. I'm not sure how often that happens, but that was some really cool photography. That was amazing. And just what wind can do and how fast wind blows and changes things. And we see that when you have a tornado or whatever. And just something to think about every time the wind blows now, you can look out and see how fast water evaporates. So, things that you learn about God is, you know, God's sovereign, and He's in full control of all the things that He's created. And as we're getting closer to His return, it's amazing how many people are looking towards other things than God. You know, the stuff that Pastor and I share together back and forth, it's just really, it's lunacy. It's lunacy what people are looking towards. I mean, okay, so we've got a president, but he's not gonna fix everything. He can't. He's not God. And until the hearts of people change, nothing changes. And so God has to be involved in that. God has to do it. We can't change the hearts of people. The people can't change their own hearts. God has to change it. And so that's why we're here. We're here to learn so that when people ask us, we can show them the way of salvation. Because until they're saved, until that heart is permanently changed, the things are going to get worse. They're not going to get better. I don't care who's in office. I don't care what party's in office. I don't care if we have a worldwide treaty with everybody. If the hearts are not changed, nothing's going to change. It's going to get worse. And we look forward to the Lord's return for that reason. Because we know that that's His plan. And somebody said today, well, but God, you know, we could have a complete worldwide change and you know, a worldwide revival. I said, show it to me in the Bible. It's not there. There might be pockets, but there's not going to be a worldwide revival like a lot of people are talking about. And how could there be if God's plan is for everything to fall apart so that He can come back and judge the world? Doesn't make sense, doesn't go with the plan. So we look forward to His return. I'm going to end there. And any discussions or questions, comments?
So the raven's a scavenger, right?
Right.
So it makes sense, there'd be dead stuff floating in the water, that's why it never came back. It was feeding on the old garbage that was still in the water yet. So, it's kinda interesting because, okay, I got my Schofield here. It had this little note, the raven and the dove have been thought to stand for believers' two natures. The old man satisfied with the world under judgment, the new man finding satisfaction only in the things of new creation. So the raven would be satisfied with all the old garbage that was left over in the death, where the dove was not.
That's good.